Hi, day 2 of the Rose Petal murder case, and boy, did the jury get an earful today. I learned a lot, and I'm going to recap the whole thing for you right after this. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Yes, it snowed here yesterday, so I'll have to get my snowman shirt out. If you've not subscribed, consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, consider becoming a member. So, day 2, full day of testimony in this Rose Petal murder case. This is the case where South Carolina is trying Zachary Hughes for the murder of Christina Purcell back on October 13th of 2021 during COVID, like the tail end of COVID. Anyway, she was stabbed 31 times. Well, we have not heard from the medical examiner yet. So the jury does not know that. The jury knows that she was found murdered. So the first person on the stand for day 2 is crime scene investigator, the one that took all the pictures at the scene, and probably close to 100 photographs get admitted into evidence. And she describes the photographs. We don't get to see them. There's blood stains on the couch. There's rose petals everywhere. There's actual, it almost looked like whoever murdered her had brought bouquets of flowers, because there was the rose stems. We did see pictures of the rose stems, and there were not just roses, there was wildflowers there. This investigator noted she had broken fingernails, which is, she said, is common when someone is trying to defend themselves in an altercation. There were drag marks, so her body was drugged to her final location. She said the couch had been moved after the incident, and she attended the autopsy the next day, and she was the one that did the fingernail scraping. She went under the fingernails to see if there was any DNA of someone, a murderer, under there. Yeah, is there a DNA? Of course there is. So she was asked, find any vases in that house? You know, where maybe she had these flowers in her home. No vases. No vases were found. So the next person on the stand was the school resource officer. He was covering several elementary schools in that area on his way to work that morning, and heard this call and decided he'd just stop by, And he does. And he learns, he's standing there talking to Brad Post. And from Brad Post, he learns that there's a child that lives at this location. The victim had a child that goes to such and such an elementary school, which is the elementary school, one of the elementary schools he worked at. So he leaves. He calls the elementary school and he says, is this child in school today? And they said, yes, she is. And they said, under no circumstances, do not let her leave with anybody. And I want the school locked down. So they locked down the school. He says, just let her go on with her normal day, but don't let her leave with anybody. So he goes to that elementary school, makes sure she's okay for the rest of the day. They let her go through the rest of the day, just normal. And then when school was over, she got to walk home. Now, I don't know why they would let her walk into that situation. School gets out a little after 2 p.m. They're still investigating this crime scene. Anyway, I can just imagine that by then they had somebody from Child Protective Services to meet her at the scene, or to meet her when she got home. That's what I'm surmising. So the next person on the stand is Tina Purcell, the victim's sister. Now, she is a real interesting woman, very intelligent, very intelligent. You're not going to get one over on her. She's one of these. I wondered if she didn't say what she did for a living. So I'm wondering if she is a lawyer, because she'd say, could you rephrase your question? What time frame are you asking about? Things that a lawyer would know to ask. I don't know. and well-dressed and, just a gorgeous woman. Older sister, Christina was her younger sister. They were 2 years and 4 days apart. So she was asked to go back a ways and start explaining, the history of this victim. Christina, she said in the early 2000s, Christina was getting married for the second time, and she, Tina, was getting married for the first time. In December of 2008, she meets John Mello. Now, if what I heard was correct, I think Christina's still married when she meets this John Mello. John Mello was married as well, but Christina goes on to get divorced from this guy. So she stays with Mello from 2008 till October of 2015. In the meantime, she has this child of John Mello, who's still married. Yeah. And the child was born June 5th of 2012. So in 2009, Christina tells the family, I'm in a place of spiritual love, and she doesn't want any negativity, and so she just cuts off all contact with her family, cuts it off for 4 years. So 4 years later, July of 2014, she reconnects with her family, and that's when they learn, oh, hey, we got a grandchild and a niece. They didn't know. They had no idea. So she said that the first several years of this child's life, Christine was raising that child. So when the child is 3, this is when this breakup happens. And she says this breakup happens in October of 2015, and almost right away, the litigation regarding custody starts. Custody battle, as she put it. And then within a month or so, Christina's dating this Bradley Post guy who had frequented her dad's cigar shop when they were younger. So in 2020, her mom gets diagnosed with cancer. Their mom gets diagnosed with cancer, and the two of them, they decide, we need to make an effort to be in each other's lives. And her sister Christine was reaching out to her, I want you involved in my daughter's life. And so they decide that they're going to move in together. So she said pretty early on, Christina and John Mello had a gentleman's agreement that he would have full custody. She would have visitation every other weekend, holidays, when, the usual thing that we used to do back in the day. They don't do that anymore. Now it's shared custody. But and she said it was a gentleman's agreement until it wasn't. So we're going to hear more about this litigation later on. You got to stay till the end, because let me tell you, we're going to hear from the Guardian ad litem, and does she have some stories to tell? Anyway, so in October of 2020, John Mello leaves the country with their daughter, with Christina's child, and sends her an email that says, we can't make it to the next visit. So now she's like, what? She has no idea where her daughter is until she sees Facebook. She's looking at Facebook, and there's a post showing him and the child. And in the background, you can see signage that indicates that they're in Italy. So she contacts anybody she can think to contact, and ends up with the State Department, and ends up, going through this paperwork pursuant to the Hague Convention to get her daughter back. So in the summer of 2020, her lease was up. Tina's lease was up, and she says, I need to get. Also, this is in the middle of COVID. She said, I had been sheltering in place with my estranged husband. We got divorced, and I'm still sheltering in place with this guy. Very awkward. So I decided I'm going to get an apartment. And I tell my sister, I can get a 3 bedrooms. That way, when the daughter comes to visit, she'll have a place. So they get a 3-bedroom apartment. So then she goes through and she explains this entire process of how Christina had to go through to get the daughter back. And in April, April 22nd of 2021, she does get the daughter back. The following month, May of 2021, Tina's lease is up on this apartment, and there's a house that she wants to purchase, but because it's during COVID, the house is in foreclosure, and there's a moratorium on foreclosures. So she can't close on this house because of this moratorium. And she's like, I got to have some place to go, and I want to buy this house. So she entered into some kind of pre-sale rental agreement with the owners of the house. So she moves into this house. This is a house where the murder was committed. And she said it was like a ranch style house. The front room where Christina's body was found, she goes, well, we didn't use that room. That's the room where, in these ranch houses, you have that front room that, you've got the white furniture and the plastic on it. The jury laughed, we didn't use that room. We used the den to watch TV, and there was another room where they would have their morning coffee. So they didn't use this front room, and it had a big like picture window, but they would leave it, the curtains and the blinds open pretty much all the time because they weren't using the room. But when the daughter would play outside, they could see her, and they were very afraid that she might be taken. So she wasn't allowed to play outside unless she was under their direct supervision. Then they received several envelopes during this time. She received several envelopes, and inside these envelopes, she called what was in there revenge porn. They were naked photos of her sister. And as somebody asked her, well, how do you know that was your sister? She's like, really? That's what you want to ask me? It's my sister. I know where her tattoos are. Yeah, it was my sister. Anyway. So she learned about the murder when she gets a call from Brad Post. She had gone to work that morning. She said they woke up that morning. She slept in a little bit late. Christina got the child off to school, but then came back because she had forgotten this folder that the child needed. And she's like, what's for dinner? We got gymnastics this afternoon, and, have a great day. And that's the last time she saw her sister alive. So she gets a call from Brad Post saying, she gets a voicemail. She didn't hear the call. She gets a voicemail. She checks the voicemail, finds out there's something going on at the sister's house or her house. And she calls Brad back, and Brad tells her that the sister is deceased. So she responds to the residence and gets there about 11:30. And then she was asked, does she know Zachary Hughes? She says, no, I never met him. I don't know who he is. Never talked to him. But I found this email this past week when I was going through my things. I found an email from John Mello where Zachary Post was CC'd, and she gets cut off. And I'm like, ooh. But not before she got it out. Of course, the jury was, I don't know if they were asked to disregard it or not, but there was an objection that was sustained. So they move along. Anyway, she denied any usage of cocaine. She said, my sister did not use cocaine. In fact, because of this ongoing custody litigation, they had been drug tested. And we're going to learn later on for the Guardian, all of them have been drug tested. Christina, Tina, and the child have been drug tested based on allegations that John Mello was making against Christina. And there was no evidence of them using drugs. So, and then she just gratuitously mentioned at some point during the questioning that John Mello had threatened to have her arrested for kidnapping. Then they talked about the sleeping arrangements in this house. Where did the daughter sleep? She's like, well, she got the hot pink room. Apparently one of the rooms was hot pink, and the daughter was thrilled. So she got the hot pink room. Well, didn't she sleep with mom? I thought you said she slept with mom. She does sleep with mom, but she has a room where her stuff is. And she probably slept with her dad too. This is what Tina says. Yeah, she slept with dad too. Okay. It's a 9-year-old. Anyway. And then she said that there was an allegation that John had made that Christina worked for an escort service. Interesting. So then we get this strange guy in this red jacket. And I think somebody must have loaned him this jacket because the clerk is also, or one of the court deputies is also wearing this bright red jacket. And I thought, did he have a spare bright red jacket for this? Because it looked like the same jacket. Anyway, this guy worked for John Mello. He did odd jobs for John Mello, cleaned John Mello's house while John was over in Italy. And yes, he knows who Zach Hughes is, but he says, I only knew him for a few weeks. I don't know nothing about this murder. Like he didn't want nothing to do with this. I don't know anything. So he was on and off the stand very quickly. Then we get this homicide detective with the Greenville County Sheriff's Department, who also responds out to the scene. He was just finishing up another case, and then 2 days after the murder, he gets assigned to this case. So the first thing he does is he decides he's going to go out, canvass the neighborhood again for more video footage, because some of the houses might have, people might have not been home during the first canvass, and now he might find something. But he ends up talking to the witness that just had been on the stand. His name comes to him, and so he talks to him, and that's when he learns about Zach's name. So he's like, well, let me look up this Zach guy. So he looks him up. He finds out that he's a famous concert pianist. So now the jury knows he's a concert pianist. He says he's famous for memorizing music. He doesn't, and I'm like, no, that's not what he's famous for. He's famous for memorizing all 31 concertos of Beethoven, and playing them one after the other. That's like incredible. So anyway, so this guy took a DNA sample from that witness we just heard from, and then he decides he's going to investigate Zach Hughes. So he does Google searches. He finds out that he gets a copy of Zach's driver's license, shows it to that witness that was just on the stand, and says, "Is this the guy? Is this Zach Hughes? Is this the one that is the pianist?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's him. That's him." So then he learns that Zach owned a gold 1999 Ford Ranger. And so then he goes to the traffic division in Greenville, where they have what they call flock cameras. I don't know what that stands for, but they're traffic cameras. They will actually take pictures of the back of the vehicle, of the driver, and the license plate. So he gets like 20 pictures of Zach's vehicle, but there was 2 pictures on the date of the murder. And here's one of them. There's a bicycle in the back of his truck. So now they find out, they get a warrant for the address on the driver's license, and he's living there, and they go out. But this is a home that's owned by somebody named Jeanette and Marshall Wynn. He's living there. So they decide they get an arrest warrant for him. They get a search warrant for the house. They go out to execute it. It's full on SWAT, we're surrounding the house, come out with your hands up type thing. The Wynns were not home. They were vacationing in Europe. So, and he cooperates. He raises his hand, puts his cell phone down on the table, and now they have a cell phone. So then they find out that the Wynns own another residence that is up in the mountains of northern South Carolina, probably northwestern. And this place is like, Twilight in the Woods. Remember the cabin they had in the woods for Bella and Edward, in the middle of nowhere? This cabin is in the middle of nowhere. And he says, you can run around naked. Nobody's ever going to see you. This place is just in the middle of nowhere. And they got a search warrant for that house because they were still looking for it. They'd found the bicycle. at the first residence. And what he said about that, there was a garage full of bicycles, including the one in question, which looked like it had been come off the showroom floor clean, while the other bicycles were dusty and dirty and had cobwebs. This bicycle had been used recently. So they confiscated the bicycle, confiscated the Range Rover, but they wanted to search this other residence for clothing and the murder weapon. So they go to this other residence and they see that they don't find the murder weapon. They don't find clothing, but they find a trail cam. So he confiscates the trail cam, gets the footage from the trail cam pursuant to a warrant. And on this trail cam, there is a picture of, or there's footage of Zachary Hughes walking through the woods. And he is wearing a black hoodie. But what you can see in this black hoodie, I'm going to show you this picture. Look around his collar. That black hoodie is double-sided. The inside of that black hoodie is gray. There's your explanation why he went into the house with a gray shirt on, comes out with a black shirt. He just turned it inside out and left after the murder. That's what their theory is. Very interesting. And then so briefly we hear from a crime scene investigator on the stand who talks about searching the vehicle, and she finds 5 pairs of black gloves in the vehicle. And he was wearing gloves at the scene of this murder. Then the guardian ad litem takes the stand. I need a drink for this one. Yeah, coffee. John Mallow was a very difficult litigant to manage. She became increasingly concerned about John Mallow. Now, she was assigned this case when they were trying to get the daughter back from Italy. That's when she gets assigned to the case. But she said there were 3 prior cases before where there was another guardian ad litem. So she gets in touch with this other guardian ad litem, and they're comparing notes. And she said she had multiple contact with John Mallow while he was in Italy through email. Only one time she talked to him on the phone. It was all email. And they're like, how many emails? And she goes, well, when we printed them all out, it was 3 reams of paper. Now, I don't know if that's front and back, but each ream is 500 sheets. So 1,500 sheets of emails. That's a lot of emails from this guy. But then he starts threatening her, saying, hey, you always need to be looking over your shoulder. Listen to what she describes he starts doing to her.
So not getting into the specifics of maybe some of the things that he messaged you, but what kind of, when you say threats and harassment, what kinds of things was he conveying to you?
He would tell me that I always needed to be looking over my shoulder, that he was coming after my license, that I was going to get arrested for criminal charges or civil charges, that I was definitely going to jail. He mentioned my children to me by name with specific information about them at one visitation I had with him. He put terrible things on the internet about me, including my office address and phone number. He actually included my husband in his posts. He said awful things, that we were trafficking children, Ukrainian children through Spartanburg. That's like on the internet. It was Facebook and Reddit. And at one point he had said I was manufacturing child pornography in my law office and put my address and my phone number right there. So he was definitely fired up.
So she said, it became very clear that nothing is off limits with this guy. Very clear. She says this was the worst case she had ever worked on. The worst. He actually sued her civilly. So she's in civil litigation with this guy. So at the point of the murder, just before the murder, she had hired a private investigator and was actively investigating these allegations he kept making about her, because this is a child she's responsible for. And she's got to make sure they're not, it is or it isn't true. So, and one of the allegations was that Christina does drugs. That's when she has everybody drug tested. No evidence of drugs. The private investigator couldn't find any evidence of drugs coming in or out of the house. So she decides she's going to ask for a psych evaluation of John Mello. That motion was pending at the time of this murder. Then she talked about how she had received one of these envelopes. Same thing everybody else is talking about with these envelopes, that had the pictures in them of Christina. And listen to what she says about these allegations he was making.
And once you assume this role and this John Mello's actions in the custody of Steve.
Yes, this would be in line with also what he emailed, how he conducted himself. He was determined to discredit and disparage and ruin the reputation and character of the mother. He was in a custody battle. So he was determined for her to be thought of in a certain light and hopefully be determined to be unfit.
So she investigates and she asked Christina about these pictures. And Christina said, listen, it was a long time ago. They were all consensual. So she mentions that in family court, she's a family law lawyer. In family court, if you fail to visit your child for 6 months, they can ask the court to have your parental rights taken away. The last time he had seen her was in April 22nd, when she left Italy to go home with mom. October, 6 months later. Just saying. Kind of coincidental, right? Then the last thing I want to tell you about her, she did say that this child was thriving with the mother, doing so well at school, was, playing on her bicycle with her friends, and was just doing really, really well. She said they had Taco Tuesdays and just living a really, really good life with mom. And her recommendation was going to be that the child stay in that setting with the mom. Then they talked a little bit about after the murder, she helped get an emergency order for the sister to take custody of her briefly. But from what I understand, the sister testified that she had her for a few weeks and then she goes into foster care. And then she goes with some other family members of John. And it's really confusing. And both the sister and his guardian are still in litigation with this guy. Both civilly, and it's crazy. It's crazy. This guy, I'm wondering, are they going to get him to take the stand? Is he going to be called to testify here? Now, I understand that he has some charges pending with respect to these envelopes, because the envelopes were postmarked from a post office box owned by John Mello, even though he was in Italy, that were coming from his post office box. That was the return address on these envelopes. So more to come on that, guys. So have a wonderful day. I will keep you apprised of what happens today in this case, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye.